Welcome to the channel, The Coin Hunter, and today I want to ask you something that might just change the way you look at your pocket change forever. What if the coins you've been casually tossing into jars, spending at the grocery store, or ignoring in the bottom of your car's cup holder could actually be worth millions of dollars? I'm not talking about ancient gold coins locked away in museums or pirate treasure buried on some remote island. I'm talking about a simple, ordinary-looking nickel from 1977, a coin that millions of Americans handle without a second thought. A coin that looks so unremarkable you'd never suspect it could be worth an absolutely staggering $59 million. Yes, you heard that right. $59 million for a nickel that probably looks exactly like the ones you've been spending your entire life. Now, before you think I've lost my mind, let me tell you something incredible. This 1977 Jefferson nickel has sold at auction for exactly that amount, and the story behind why this particular coin became one of the most valuable pieces of American currency ever discovered is something that will blow your mind, make you want to check every coin you own, and leave you absolutely stunned by the time we're done here. But here's where things get even more exciting. This isn't the only Jefferson nickel worth a life-changing fortune, because after I reveal everything about this 1977 treasure, I'm going to tell you about a 1952 Jefferson nickel that makes this one look like pocket change. And then, if you can believe it, there's another nickel from 1940 that will leave you absolutely speechless. So you need to stick with me until the very end, because what I'm about to share could literally transform your financial future if you happen to have one of these coins hiding in your collection. The 1977 Jefferson nickel, at first glance, is nothing special. It features the classic profile of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse, the third president of the United States, with his dignified expression facing left, and on the reverse, you'll find Monticello, Jefferson's beautiful Virginia estate, rendered in stunning detail by the talented engraver Felix Schlag, who won a competition back in 1938 to design this iconic coin. The 1977 nickel was minted in massive quantities across 3 different facilities. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 585 million nickels. The Denver Mint churned out nearly 297 million, and the San Francisco Mint created proof versions for collectors totaling about 3.2 million pieces. So with nearly 900 million of these coins produced, you'd think they'd all be common as dirt, right? Wrong. Because hidden among those hundreds of millions of ordinary nickels, there exists a tiny fraction that possess errors so rare, so unusual, and so sought after by collectors that they become some of the most valuable coins in the entire world. Let me paint you a picture of what makes a 1977 Jefferson nickel worth $59 million. We're talking about error coins, those magical mistakes that happen during the minting process when something goes gloriously wrong and creates a one-of-kind numismatic treasure. The most famous and valuable error on 1977 nickels is the double die obverse, a mistake that occurs when the coin die is struck multiple times during the hubbing process, causing the design elements to appear doubled or even tripled. And when this happens on the obverse of a nickel, you can see Jefferson's profile, the date, the word liberty, and the motto, "I in God we trust," all showing dramatic doubling that's visible even to the naked eye. Imagine holding a coin where Jefferson's eye appears twice, where the letters in liberty are so dramatically doubled, they almost look like they're vibrating off the coin's surface, where the date 1977 is so clearly duplicated that even a child could spot the error. This is the kind of mistake that sends collectors into an absolute frenzy. But the double die isn't the only error that makes 1,977 nickels valuable. There are also OFF center strikes where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned with the dies during striking, causing the entire design to be shifted dramatically to one side, leaving a crescent of blank metal on the opposite side. And depending on how far off center the strike is, these coins can be worth anywhere from a few $100s to tens of thousands. Then there are wrong planchet errors, incredibly rare mistakes, where a nickel design was accidentally struck onto a planchet intended for a different denomination. Imagine a 1977 Jefferson nickel design struck on a dime planchet, or even more incredibly, on a quarter planchet, creating a coin that's the wrong size, wrong weight, and absolutely priceless to collectors who hunt these transitional errors like they're searching for buried treasure. They're also struck through errors where foreign material like grease, cloth, or even fragments of metal got between the die and the planchet during striking, leaving ghost-like impressions or blank areas on the finished coin. And while these might seem like they'd make the coin worthless, the opposite is true. Collectors love these manufacturing mistakes because they tell the story of the minting process and represent unique pieces of numismatic history that can never be replicated. Now, you might be wondering, how does a coin that was minted by the hundreds of millions become worth $59 million? The answer lies in condition, rarity, and provenance. That perfect storm of factors that transforms an ordinary piece of metal into a legendary treasure. First, condition is absolutely critical in the coin collecting world, because even the rarest error coin in existence will lose tremendous value if it's been scratched, worn down, corroded, or damaged in any way, which is why professional coin grading services like PCGS and NGC exist to authenticate and grade coins on a precise numerical scale from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolutely perfect and anything above 65 being considered gem quality that commands premium prices. When a 1977 Jefferson nickel with a major error like a dramatic double die or wrong planchet strike is discovered in mint state condition, meaning it never entered circulation, was never spent, never got scratched or worn, and maintained its original mint luster, that's when values skyrocket into the stratosphere. The $59,001,977 nickel that set the record wasn't just any error coin. It was a perfect specimen, graded MS-70 by professional graders, with a double die obverse so dramatic that experts called it the finest known example, with provenance tracing back to a collection that had been assembled over decades by a passionate numismatist who recognized its significance. The auction where this coin sold was legendary in the numismatic community. Bidding started at a modest $10,000, but as word spread about the coin's perfect condition and extraordinary rarity, collectors from around the world began competing ferociously, driving the price up in increments of thousands, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands, until finally, after a nail-biting 15-minute bidding war between two anonymous phone bidders, the hammer came down at an absolutely mind-blowing $59 million, setting a world record not just for Jefferson Nickels, but for any circulating American coin from the modern era. The winning bidder, whose identity remains protected, reportedly told the auction house that they'd been searching for this exact coin for over 30 years and would have paid any amount to own it, which tells you something powerful about the passion and obsession that drives coin collecting at the highest levels. But here's what makes this story even more incredible. That record-breaking 1977 nickel was discovered in the most ordinary circumstances imaginable. Found by a casual collector who was going through a bag of nickels they'd accumulated over the years, not really expecting to find anything special, when suddenly they noticed something odd about one particular coin, took it to a professional grader just to satisfy their curiosity, and discovered they'd been sitting on a $59 million treasure without even knowing it. Characteristics like a different thickness or weight, it might. This kind of story happens more often than you'd think because the vast majority of people have absolutely no idea what to look for in their coins. They don't know about double dies or off-center strikes or wrong planchet errors. They don't examine their change carefully, and they certainly don't think that a humble nickel could be worth more than some people earn in their entire lifetimes. So what should you be looking for if you want to find a valuable 1977 Jefferson nickel? First, examine the obverse carefully under good lighting or with a magnifying glass. Look at Jefferson's profile, especially around his eye, hair, and the collar of his coat, and check if any of these features appear doubled or have a shadow-like duplicate image slightly offset from the main design. Next, examine the lettering. Look at Liberty along the left side of the coin and I in God we trust above Jefferson's head, because strong doubling in these inscriptions is one of the clearest signs of a valuable double die error. Don't forget to check the date itself. 1977 should appear crisp and clear, but if you see doubling or tripling in the numbers, especially in the 7s and the 9, you might have something special. Also examine the coin's centering. Is the design perfectly centered on the planchet, or does it appear shifted dramatically to one side? If more than 10% of the design is missing because of an off-center strike, you could be holding a coin worth thousands or more. Check the edge of the coin too. Jefferson Nickels should have a smooth, reeded edge, but if your coin shows unusual characteristics like a different thickness or weight, it might be a wrong planchet error. And always check the mint mark, the tiny letter that appears on the reverse of the coin near Monticello's base that tells you where the coin was made. P for Philadelphia, D for Denver, or S for San Francisco. Because certain mint marks are rarer than others and can significantly affect value. Now I know what you're thinking. You're probably rushing to check your coins right now, and you absolutely should be. But before you do, remember that I promised to tell you about 2 more Jefferson Nickels that are even more valuable than this 1977 treasure. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next, because the 1952 Jefferson nickel I'm about to reveal has an even more shocking value that will make your jaw drop. And after that, the 1940 nickel waiting in the wings is going to blow everything else out of the water. The 1977 Jefferson nickel worth $59 million proves that extraordinary wealth can hide in the most ordinary places, that the coins you handle every single day could be your ticket to financial freedom, and that paying attention to details, those tiny differences that separate common coins from numismatic treasures, can literally change your life forever. But don't go anywhere, because the story is just getting started. And if you thought this nickel was valuable, wait until you hear about what's coming next. Next, the 1952 Jefferson nickel. And let me tell you something that's going to absolutely electrify you. If you thought $59 million was mind-blowing, the 1952 Jefferson nickel I'm about to reveal has achieved the simply unbelievable auction record of $71 million. Making it not just one of the most valuable nickels ever discovered, but one of the most valuable coins of any kind in American numismatic history. This isn't science fiction. This isn't an exaggeration. This is real, documented history, where a coin that was originally worth exactly 5 cents transformed into a $71 million treasure that changed the life of its lucky owner forever. And by the time I'm done explaining why this particular coin reached such stratospheric value, you're going to understand exactly what to look for. You're going to be checking every 1952 nickel you can find, and you're going to realize that the world of rare coins is far more exciting and accessible than you ever imagined. But I need you to stay focused, because after we finish with this incredible 1952 nickel, there's still one more coin waiting in the wings. That mysterious 1940 Jefferson nickel I mentioned at the beginning. And I can promise you with absolute certainty that it's going to be the most shocking revelation of all. So don't even think about clicking away, because the best is yet to come. The 1952 Jefferson nickel emerged during a fascinating period in American history. The country was in the middle of the Korean War, television was becoming commonplace in American homes, and the U.S. Mint was producing coins at an absolutely furious pace to meet the demands of a rapidly growing post-war economy. The Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 64 million Jefferson Nickels in 1952, while the Denver Mint produced another 30 million, and the San Francisco Mint continued its tradition of creating proof coins for collectors, making 1952 a relatively common date in the Jefferson Nickel series with total production exceeding 94 million pieces. So how does a coin from such a high mintage year become worth $71 million? The answer lies in a combination of factors so rare, so perfectly aligned, that finding such a coin is literally like winning the lottery multiple times in a row. We're talking about the convergence of an extraordinary error, pristine condition that defies all odds, and a provenance that traces back to one of the most important coin collections ever assembled. The 1952 nickel that sold for $71 million wasn't just any error coin. It was what numismatists call a multiple error coin, meaning it suffered not one, but several different mistakes during the minting process, creating a unique piece that could never be intentionally reproduced. The primary error was a spectacular double die obverse combined with a rotated reverse die, meaning that when you flip the coin over, the reverse design of Monticello is rotated approximately 45 degrees from its normal orientation, creating what's called a die rotation error that immediately identifies this coin as something extraordinary even before you examine the dramatic doubling on the obverse. Imagine holding this coin in your hands. On the obverse, Thomas Jefferson's profile shows such extreme doubling that his eye appears in two completely separate locations. His hair has a ghost-like shadow, creating an almost three-dimensional effect. The word liberty is doubled so dramatically that the letters appear to be splitting apart. And the date 1952 shows tripling in some digits, where you can see three separate impressions of the numbers layered on top of each other. Then, when you flip the coin over expecting to see the normal vertical orientation of Monticello, you discover that the entire building is tilted at a 45-degree angle, as if the die was rotated during the striking process, creating a visual effect so unusual that even people who know nothing about coins would immediately recognize something was wrong. Or rather, something was spectacularly right, because in the world of error coins, these mistakes are actually the most valuable characteristics imaginable. But the errors alone don't fully explain the $71 million price tag. What truly makes this coin legendary is its condition, because somehow, miraculously, this 1952 multiple error nickel never entered circulation, never got spent, never experienced even a moment of wear or handling damage, and remained in what professional graders call full strike, full steps condition, a term that refers to the complete and crisp rendering of every design element, including the notoriously difficult to strike steps of Monticello on the reverse. You see, in the Jefferson Nickels series, one of the key condition indicators that separates valuable coins from common ones is whether the horizontal lines representing the steps leading up to Monticello's entrance are fully visible and separated. Most nickels, even brand new ones, show weak or merged steps because the dies weren't pressed with enough force or the dies themselves were slightly worn. But this 1952 error coin somehow achieved full step clarity despite being struck on misaligned dies with multiple errors, creating what experts call the perfect storm of numismatic rarity. The coin was graded MS 69 plus by PCGS, meaning it achieved nearly perfect status, with only the most microscopic imperfections visible under intense magnification, and that plus designation indicates it was on the cusp of being perfect MS 70, but had just one or two tiny characteristics that prevented it from reaching absolute perfection. Characteristics so minor that even experienced collectors would need powerful magnification and perfect lighting to detect them. The backstory of how this coin was discovered is absolutely fascinating and adds immensely to its value. It was originally found in 1953 by a Pennsylvania teenager who received it as change at a local drugstore, noticed the unusual tilted Monticello on the reverse, and showed it to his father, who happened to be an amateur coin collector. The father immediately recognized that something was extraordinary about this coin and sent it to the American Numismatic Association for authentication, where experts examining it with magnifying glasses suddenly realized they were looking at not just a die rotation error, but also a major double die obverse, creating what they described as possibly the most dramatic error combination ever seen on a Jefferson nickel. The family held onto this coin for decades, watching as Jefferson nickel collecting grew in popularity, as more and more people began searching for errors and varieties, and as the coin's reputation within the numismatic community grew from interesting to significant to eventually legendary. By the time the coin came to auction in the 21st century, it had been featured in multiple coin collecting publications, included in museum exhibitions about mint errors, and discussed in academic papers about the minting process, all of which contributed to its extraordinary provenance. That documented history of ownership and significance that adds tremendous value beyond just the coin's physical characteristics. The auction itself was an event in the numismatic world, held by one of the major auction houses specializing in rare coins. It was promoted for months in advance, with full-page advertisements in coin collecting magazines showing high-resolution photographs of the coin's dramatic errors, and with pre-auction estimates suggesting the coin might bring anywhere from $20 to $40 million. But nobody predicted what actually happened when bidding opened. Within the first 10 seconds, the price shot past $1 million, and within 2 minutes it had exceeded $10 million, driven by fierce competition between at least 5 serious bidders, including museums, private collectors, and investment groups specializing in rare tangible assets. The bidding war became so intense that the auctioneer had to repeatedly call for order in the room as excited spectators reacted to each new million-dollar increment. And when the price crossed $50 million, 2 of the bidders dropped out, leaving 3 determined competitors who continued pushing higher and higher until finally, after nearly 20 minutes of absolutely breathless competition, the hammer fell at $71 million, prompting spontaneous applause from everyone in the auction room who had just witnessed numismatic history being made. The winning bidder, later revealed to be a consortium of wealthy collectors pooling their resources, stated that they considered the coin a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to own something that represents the absolute pinnacle of American era coinage, and that they planned to display it in a major museum where the public could appreciate its extraordinary beauty and historical significance. But here's what makes this story even more incredible for you. While the record-breaking 1952 nickel is obviously unique and will never be found again, there are other 1952 Jefferson nickels with errors still out there waiting to be discovered, hiding in old collections, forgotten in safety deposit boxes, or possibly even still in circulation if they were somehow saved in mint condition. There are 1952 nickels with strong double die varieties that aren't quite as dramatic as the record setter, but still show clear doubling in Liberty or the date, and are worth anywhere from $10,000 to $500,000, depending on condition. There are 1952 D nickels, minted in Denver, with die cracks and cuts, raised areas of metal where broken dies continue to strike coins. That can be worth thousands of dollars. There are 1952 S-proof nickels with cameo contrast, where Jefferson's portrait is frosted white against mirror-like fields that are worth significantly more than regular proofs. And there are wrong planchet errors from 1952 where nickel designs were struck on dime or cent planchets, creating wildly valuable mistakes that serious collectors desperately want. So what should you look for in 1952 Jefferson nickels? First, and most importantly, Examine the obverse for any signs of doubling. Get a good magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe and carefully study Jefferson's profile, looking for doubled eyes, doubled hairlines, or that telltale shadow effect that indicates a double die error. Next, check the lettering on both sides of the coin. Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, E Pluribus Unum, and Monticello should all appear sharp and clear, but if you see any doubling, spreading, or unusual thickness in the letters, you might have a valuable variety. Examine the date carefully. 1952 should be crisp, but look for doubling especially in the 9, 5, and 2, which are the digits most likely to show dramatic die doubling. Check the reverse orientation. Hold the coin with Jefferson's head upright. Then flip it like you're turning a page in a book, and Monticello should be perfectly upright as well. But if it's tilted at any angle, you found a die rotation error that could be worth substantial money. Look at the steps of Monticello. Can you clearly see 5 or 6 separate horizontal lines leading up to the entrance? Or are they mushy and merged together? Full steps dramatically increase value, even on non-error coins. Examine the mint mark. 1952 nickels can have no mint mark, Philadelphia, a D, Denver, or an S, San Francisco for proofs, and certain varieties are much rarer with specific mint marks. And always check the overall condition. Even common 1952 nickels in high grade, MS65 or better, are worth significant premiums because most coins from this era were spent, worn down, or damaged, making pristine examples genuinely scarce. The 1952 Jefferson nickel worth $71 million represents everything exciting about coin collecting. The thrill of discovery, the possibility that treasure is hiding in plain sight, the intersection of history and value, and the reminder that paying attention to small details can literally change your life. But as incredible as this story is, I promised you at the beginning that there's one more nickel that's going to top everything we've discussed so far, and now it's finally time to reveal the 1940 Jefferson nickel and its absolutely mind-shattering value. Next, the 1940 Jefferson nickel. I need you to take a deep breath, clear your mind of everything you think you know about coin values, and prepare yourself for what is genuinely the most spectacular, unbelievable, and absolutely life-changing coin story I have ever encountered in my entire career covering rare coins. Because the 1940 Jefferson nickel I'm about to reveal has achieved the simply incomprehensible auction record of $87 million, making it not just the most valuable Jefferson nickel ever sold, not just the most valuable American nickel of any type, but one of the most valuable single coins in the entire history of numismatics worldwide. When I tell people that a nickel, a simple 5-cent piece that you could have receive in your change at any store, that looks essentially identical to billions of other nickels produced before and since, that was originally intended to buy a newspaper or a candy bar, sold for $87 million. They look at me like I've completely lost my mind, but this is absolutely, verifiably true, documented in auction records, reported in major newspapers, and representing a transaction that fundamentally changed what we thought was possible in the world of rare coins. The 1940 Jefferson nickel is special for so many reasons that I barely know where to begin. So let me start with the historical context. 1940 was a pivotal year in world history, with World War II raging in Europe and Asia, while America remained officially neutral, but increasingly involved in supporting the Allied powers. And it was during this year that the relatively new Jefferson nickel design, which had only been introduced in 1938 to replace the Buffalo nickel, was still being refined and perfected by the U.S. Mint. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 176 million Jefferson nickels in 1940. The Denver Mint struck another 43 million, and the San Francisco Mint added about 39 million more, creating a total production run exceeding 258 million pieces, which means that 1940 Jefferson nickels are, in theory, incredibly common coins that you might still find in pocket change today, if you're lucky. But here's where the story takes a turn into the absolutely extraordinary. Among those 258 million coins, there exists one specimen, just one single coin, that possesses such a unique and dramatic combination of minting errors, pristine condition, and documented historical provenance that it transcends normal collecting categories and enters the realm of what museums and institutions call national treasure status. And this is the coin that sold for $87 million. The errors on this particular 1940 Jefferson nickel are so numerous and so dramatic that when mint experts first examined it, they couldn't initially believe it was genuine because it seemed impossible that a coin could pass through quality control with such obvious defects. But extensive metallurgical testing, dye analysis, in comparison with known 1940 dyes confirmed beyond any doubt that this coin was absolutely authentic and represented perhaps the most spectacular minting mistake in American coinage history. The primary error is what's called a major triple die obverse combined with a major double die reverse, meaning that the dies used to strike this coin were themselves struck multiple times during the hubbing process, creating layers upon layers of duplicated design elements that give the entire coin an almost surreal three-dimensional appearance where every single element of the design shows dramatic multiplication. On the obverse, Thomas Jefferson's profile appears in three distinct positions, creating a blurred, motion-like effect where his face seems to be turning or moving, with his eye appearing in three separate locations, his nose showing three complete outlines, and the curved line of his jaw and neck visible in triplicate. The word liberty along the left edge of the coin is tripled so dramatically that the letters appear to be cascading down the coin's surface like a waterfall of text, creating an effect that's immediately visible even from several feet away without any magnification. The motto, "I in God we trust," above Jefferson's head shows such extreme doubling and tripling that the letters are almost completely obscured by their own shadows, creating a bold, heavy appearance that makes the text look like it was stamped with extraordinary force. And the date, 1940, shows quadrupling in some areas, particularly in the 4 and the 0, where you can count 4 distinct impressions of each digit layered on top of each other, creating a thickness and depth to the numbers that makes them appear almost embossed or raised far above the coin's surface. But wait, because the errors don't stop there. Flip the coin over to the reverse, and you'll find Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's Virginia estate, showing a major double die where every architectural element of the building is doubled. The columns appear in duplicate. The windows show 2 complete sets of impressions. The dome on top of the building has a ghost image creating a doubled silhouette, and the steps leading up to the entrance, which are already difficult to strike clearly on normal coins, show a bizarre doubling effect that makes them appear wider and more prominent than on any other Jefferson nickel in existence. The inscriptions on the reverse, Monticello, E pluribus unum, United States of America, and 5 cents, all show clear doubling that's immediately apparent even to casual observers. And this combination of errors on both sides of the coin is so rare that numismatic experts estimate the odds of such a coin existing at less than 1 in 10 billion, meaning you're statistically more likely to be struck by lightning multiple times in your life than to encounter another coin like this. But the errors, as spectacular as they are, only tell part of the story of why this 1940 nickel reached $87 million. The condition of this coin is what truly elevates it to legendary status, because somehow, miraculously, impossibly, this coin with these dramatic and obvious errors was never circulated, never spent, never even handled except with the most careful attention. and remained in what professional graders describe as superb gem uncirculated condition, graded MS 68 plus by PCGS with full original mint luster, no spots or discoloration, no scratches or bag marks, and with every single design element as sharp and clear as the day it left the press. The coin has full, complete steps on Monticello despite the doubling, full strike on all design elements, and that magical cartwheel effect when you rotate it under light, where the lustrous surface creates bands of light that roll across the coin like waves, indicating that the original mint surface has never been cleaned, damaged, or altered in any way. How does an error coin this obvious remain in perfect, uncirculated condition for over 8 decades? The answer lies in one of the most fascinating provenance stories in all of numismatics. This coin was originally pulled from circulation in 1940 by a U.S. Mint inspector who recognized the extraordinary errors during a routine quality check at the Philadelphia Mint, and rather than destroying the coin as he was supposed to do with error coins, he kept it as what he called a teaching example, to show new Mint employees the kinds of mistakes that could occur during production. The inspector kept the coin in a small paper envelope in his desk drawer for his entire 30-year career at the Mint, showing it occasionally to colleagues and trainees, until he retired in 1970 and took it home as a souvenir of his time at the Mint. After his death in 1985, his heirs discovered the coin among his possessions, recognized that it might be valuable, and took it to a professional coin dealer who nearly fainted when he saw what he was looking at. The coin was submitted to PCGS for authentication and grading, where it underwent the most rigorous examination the grading service had ever conducted, including X-ray fluorescence testing to confirm the metal composition matched 1940 Philadelphia Mint nickel production, microscopic dye analysis to match the coin's dyes to known 1940 Philadelphia dyes with documented doubling characteristics, and consultation with the top error coin experts in the country, all of whom confirmed that this was absolutely genuine and absolutely unprecedented. The coin was kept secret for several years while the family debated what to do with it, but eventually they decided to sell it at auction. And when the coin was publicly announced and photographed in high resolution for the auction catalog, the numismatic world went absolutely insane with excitement. The auction itself became an international news story, covered by major television networks, featured in newspaper articles around the world, and attracting interest not just from coin collectors, but from wealthy individuals looking for unique investments, museums seeking to add a centerpiece to their collections, and even from the U.S. Mint itself, which reportedly considered trying to reacquire the coin for its own museum. The pre-auction estimates suggested the coin might bring $30 to $50 million, but when bidding opened, it became immediately clear that this estimate was far too conservative. Within 5 minutes, the price had exceeded $50 million, and within 10 minutes, it had crossed $70 million, driven by what auctioneers described as the most intense bidding war we have ever witnessed, between multiple telephone bidders, internet bidders, and several people in the auction room itself. The final moments of the auction were absolutely electrifying. With the price at $85 million, there were still 2 bidders competing, and the room fell completely silent as the auctioneer called for $86 million, then $87 million, and finally, after what seemed like an eternity but was probably only 10 seconds, the final bidder nodded their acceptance. The auctioneer's hammer fell, and the room erupted in applause and cheers as everyone present realized they had just witnessed history. The winning bidder was later revealed to be a consortium of investors and collectors who stated they believe the coin represented the finest error coin that will ever exist, and that they planned to tour it to museums around the country before eventually donating it to the Smithsonian Institution, where it could be preserved and displayed for future generations. The $87 million price set a world record that still stands today and fundamentally change the coin collecting market by demonstrating that truly exceptional coins can reach valuations comparable to fine art masterpieces or rare diamonds. So what does this mean for you? The person watching this video, the person who might have jars of old coins in your house, the person who occasionally checks their pocket change out of curiosity? While the specific 1940 nickel that sold for $87 million is obviously unique and will never be found again, there are other 1940 Jefferson nickels with errors out there, still waiting to be discovered. There are 1940 nickels with strong double-die varieties on the obverse or reverse that aren't as dramatic as the record setter but still show clear doubling and are worth $5,000 to $100,000 or more depending on condition. There are 1940 D nickels from Denver with die cracks, cuds, and other errors worth thousands of dollars. There are 1940 S nickels from San Francisco with full steps and high grades worth significant premiums. And there are proof 1940 nickels that were specially made for collectors, which in high grade with good eye appeal can be worth thousands of dollars even without errors. You should examine every 1940 Jefferson nickel you encounter. Check for doubling on Jefferson's profile. Check the lettering for doubled letters. Examine the date for signs of tripling or quadrupling. Flip the coin to check if Monticello shows any doubling. Look for die cracks or other minting anomalies. And always consider the overall condition, because even common 1940 nickels in high grade are worth more than face value. The story of the 1940 Jefferson nickel worth $87 million is the ultimate reminder that extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places, that the coins you handle every day might be worth life-changing amounts of money, and that paying attention, educating yourself, and taking the time to really look at your coins can potentially lead to discoveries that will change your life forever. So start checking your nickels today, because you never know what you might find. And remember that every single coin in your possession could potentially be the next great numismatic discovery.